Hello there, welcome back everyone for Game 5 of Day 4 of the LJL Academy League, brought to you by the LJL Officially Unofficial. I'm Middlecott, hopefully you're going to be hearing a little bit more from me in this upcoming game. Going to be joined by Recollect, who did a sterling job on the unconscious solo cast.
It would have worked better if I was the play-by-play. I could make that work, but
Yeah.
it's more like I'm just like it's just dead silence, and then yeah, I agree with you. I think that's like that's what people no, like that's actually what it is. So I mean,
Yeah,
apart from that,
it's
it was
probably
great,
not the best way to experience a League of Legends broadcast, but regardless, we are going to be moving on to look at these rosters. Rascal Jester's Academy versus Sengoku Academy. Obviously, neither of these teams picking up any wins as of yet. But that doesn't mean that there aren't any strong players. I think both of us are sort of gravitating a little bit more towards this bot lane to where we want to be seeing things happening.
Yeah, so if I'm looking at, in my opinion, probably the player that I'm watching the most in this series, it's gonna be Shakespeare. I feel like she's an absolute beast on Leona. Like when you see the solo flow engages, they almost always look solid, and that's where they gain a lot of their strong sort of advantages from. When they do get advantage, it's usually because the engages are just so good that it feels like it's impossible to lose a fight. Like because you're just landing multi-man, the owner engages, and it just looks really solid. At the same time, I feel like there are other strong points for this roster. Rando looked really good yesterday in terms of the last game that they played in. Suratama is always a player that is fun to watch, can have moments of looking really strong. But when I look at the other roster, the side for Sengoku, I feel like they have similar sort of strength avenues. I mean, Yu has looked really good. I think Nina, when on utility marksman like the Ashe, looks really solid as well.
Yep.
And I think I'm going to say this wrong. Akai, the jungler. I apologize for the lack of pronunciation skills.
Yeah.
I'm not the best. I think they look really solid as well. So I'm excited to see how this game does end up playing out. But the strengths being in similar spots means I want to see, this attention going towards towards those bot lanes, put Shakespeare on an engage-based support, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think those side lanes really need to be where the action comes from. Obviously, the mid-jungle duos can be important, but I don't feel like we've got the strongest mid laners from what I've seen in these two, Cosmic and Akainu. But if you're able to have a strong performance on the back half of the group stage, regular split, whatever we're calling it, it does serve you well because every team gets seeded into playoffs. Obviously, when you're lower down the table, you will be forced to face off against the likes of your V3 academies and your CGA academies. But if you're fundamentally going into playoffs in good form, then you should be feeling all right. But I do have to agree with you. This is going to be a fairly rough matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I must confess, this is more my style of gameplay. I like seeing scrapping. I like seeing fighting. It's what I know. It's what I love. So I'm excited to watch it, and I hope that we can see people just forcing plays, even if it's not necessarily perfect. Just pick compositions that can go and just go. This is the game where you don't necessarily have to worry about, this guy might mechanically destroy across the map. This guy the macro might be incredible. Like against V3, the macro is terrifying. And if you make a mistake, you feel like you're just going to lose the game because their macro is so good.
And generally that happens.
That happens, yeah, exactly. And it's well warranted worry. But in this game, whilst neither of the teams are bad teams, the macro isn't necessarily, in my opinion, on that same level of punishment if you do make mistakes. So you can make aggressive plays, even if they're not perfectly optimized, perfect in that regard. The punish probably won't come through as severely, so you can afford to be aggressive. You can afford to just try and skill check people and just be aggressive, and I want to see them try that because it's something that these teams, in my opinion, have lacked, is that killer instinct.
Well, we will have to see as we are going to be heading towards the pick and ban for this game between Rascal Jester Academy and Sengoku Academy. We'll have to see if either of them go towards that aggressive style that you would like to see, Recollect. LeBlanc and the Yone banned on the Rascal Jester side, Nidalee and, of course, Rando's Alawi taken off the table.
Yeah, so these bans make a lot of sense. In my opinion, I actually think Akainu is a little bit better than Cosmic in terms of that mid matchup. I think Akainu is an underrated mid laner, not the best in the league, but pretty solid. And on the flip side, the champions that are being banned out, this is desensitizing. Essentially, 3 picks for Rando. It's desensitizing. Obviously, the Legion and Alawi off the table, but Renekton is usually picked to pair with this Nidalee. So taking away the Nidalee does also deny the importance of that Renekton.
It will be the Varus locked in initially for Siratama. Could go towards a poke or a DPS build, so a little bit of flexibility there. But is one of these picks that gets traditionally weak-sided, so Shakespeare can start to affect the map like we know she loves to. Sengoku, though, going to be responding with the Thresh. Now, this could set up for an Aphelios, but the Chain Warden is pretty good with basically any sort of AD carry.
Yeah, the amount of safety combined with the potential of engaging, utilizing that death sentence and peel tools with the Flay and Box. Thresh can do a little bit of everything except poke you down, so he has a lot of power. But as you said, the Aphelios is usually the AD carry of choice, and it's locked in here for Nina.
Yeah, going to be providing a lot of DPS. Nina, obviously one of the higher ranked players, I feel, on this roster. And a pick like Aphelios definitely enables the more skilled players to do as much DPS as they can. Very standard pick and ban phase so far as Kura blocks in the Xinjiao.
Yeah, nothing too special jumping out at me at the moment. The Xinjiao for that early game power, and it's nice to me to see that because Europe has elected to usually go towards more early game based junglers, so it's not too surprising to see that. But that is a little bit new. Seeing the Twisted Fate locked in here for Cosmic. Now that usually means you're going to be seeing very aggressive CC based top and bots that can, with a decent amount of carry potential, that TF can help to emphasize. So we're going to be likely seeing an engaged tool coming through in the bot lane here for Shakespeare, showing the fact that TF is online.
Ooh, but it's the Olaf locked in. Obviously, this does exist as a pseudo flex pick. We know that Adam in the LEC for Fnatic loves to pick this one out top lane. But I think it's more likely to go towards Aki in the jungle role. And I think Rascal Jester's here with the composition that they've drafted so far. They're recognizing what we were talking about, how it's the top lane and bot lane that are really the strong points for both of these teams. And the TF is definitely a pick that can enable one of those side lanes.
Yeah, unfortunately at the same time though, that Twisted Fate does have issues with this Olaf lock-in. Can absolutely just run straight through that gold card, does not care, and at the same time can run through the chains of corruption. And if we assume that Shakespeare is going to be playing that type of engaged CC based support, this Olaf is only going to have more emphasis towards it. However, we haven't seen any enhancers locked in just yet. Typically, you'll pair it with something like Karma, something like a Lulu, but with that Thresh locked in, that would have to come through the mid lane, so it might just be a raw Olaf with very little help.
Yeah, although an Akali Hover would completely be a departure from that sort of style. But I agree with you. It does, the Olaf pick does throw a little bit of a spanner in what Rascal Jester want to do. It will be locked in though. Okay, so Akainu picks up the Assassin. This does leave Sengoku's top lane pick for the counter. Rascal Jesters will be looking to lock in their support and top laner now.
Yeah, there is an argument to be made, and it sounds weird that something like Brom would make a lot of sense, and it does come through. Wow, okay, that was well timed. Okay, so the logic here is the fact that the range is kind of lacking here in terms of the members of SG. The Akali is going to struggle with TF just pressing R to reveal the Akali. That's why Akali is considered to be countered by TF. You can never shroud against him. So the gold card is guaranteed. You combine that with the fact that the bot 2v2 matchup is very good for the Varus Braum, and it makes a lot of sense to lock this one in. And now you have this Aatrox who can also do quite a bit of work in the backline, but there's not a whole lot of dive from Rascal Jester, so they're wanting to play a very traditional front to back that relies quite heavily on CC from this gold card.
Yeah, Aatrox is the sort of pick that can sort of take over games though, so if we do see a little bit of attention towards the Darkin Blade in the early game, can really start to show up. Yu's going to be on the set, a fairly sort of standard neutralizing pick, can pull away the Aatrox and the Xinjiao if they ever want to dive forward. But I feel like there's a lot of potential for the Sengoku members to get poked out if they're not able to find that initial engage.
Yeah, this might be an odd thing to say. I feel like we're at the end of Season 9 again. It feels a little bit like this is an old Season 9 composition coming through. But I think there's actually a lot of value in what Rascal Jester has done here. Even though their composition, it might not at first glance make a lot of sense, they have a lot of valuable assets
Yeah.
to them in regards to they want to play in their space. If the enemy enters their space, it's going to be advantageous for them in theory. But at the same time, the enemy composition is built to run at you at the same time and dive in. They're going to be relying quite heavily on this Akali and this Olaf to be doing that. But I'm quite interested to see why Akainu wanted to play that Akali TF matchup, because the Akali was picked into Twisted Fate. Typically, TF is going to be doing okay in the laning phase, and Akali doesn't get to do any assassination business later on because of the fact that Twisted Fate can just pop the Destiny Gate ultimate, and she can just reveal Akali as soon as she goes in, and you can never actually play in your Shroud. So it's very difficult to pilot this Akali in those late game fights, so I have to see what Akainu can do before we do reach those later stages.
Yeah, well, and especially considering the early game, gold card into a Xin Zhao gank, probably the easiest setup that you can get. There's a lot of damage as well in that combination. So Akali, not really considered the best pick in terms of laning phase, could get caught out and put to a point where they're so far behind that they're not really able to impact the map in the same way. So in that case, it would be looking towards Nina, who has been the main carry on a lot of occasions for this Sengoku Academy lineup. But I feel like it's going to be difficult to get advantages on this Aphelios when you're against such a neutralizing lane of the Varus Braum.
Yeah, that is the power of the Varus Braum, is that you're happy to just scale it up and you can't actually engage onto them. If Thresh hooks in, Braum is just going to be able to easily stack up that passive, use the shield to deny damage, and you're going to end up winning out if you are on the side of the Rascal Jester bot lane. An argument could be made, though, that later on Nina is going to have a field day because it's very hard to hit this Aphelios with the composition that's been drafted here for Rascal Jester. So if you can get those chakrams spinning, you can get that Infernum to burn down the enemy members, you can do quite a lot of work. However, that's all dependent on whether or not Rando can buy space for the rest of the team. Because if he can create a situation where he's on top of Nina and forcing the Aphelios to only hit him, a lot of time is going to be bought as well as space. And in the longer term fight, Rascal Jester would likely win it. However, as I said, if Sengoku is able to keep those fights clumped up so Aphelios can hit multiple members, there can be a lot of value given to Nina.
Yeah, it will be all on that Aphelios for sure. The Aatrox is a pick that we haven't really seen too much of recently. But I assume it is just Rascal Jester's trying to opt in to this this win early style a little bit more and really enable Rando on the top lane.
Yeah, I mean, given the composition they have drafted, they're going to be having a pretty disgusting mid-game spike. My assumption is this is going to be the lethality-based Varus instead of the attack speed variation, in which case you're going to be hitting pretty hard on about 2 items there. TF is known for having a pretty strong mid-game with the ability to impact both side lanes as well as hitting pretty solid spikes when he gets himself the Everfrost. Typically gets that rapid-fire cannon on his second or third item as well, so starts to do quite a bit of utility work. And Xin Zhao, again, known for that early game power, so a lot of mid-early sort of champions. And whilst their composition has a good matchup into the enemy composition, in terms of individual champion scaling, the Aphelios probably scales better. The Akali, in theory, scales well as a champion individually, but will struggle likely because of Twisted Fate. And Set can do quite a bit of work as well, as can Olaf potentially. So, in terms of individual champion scaling, I give it to Sengoku. Team scaling, depending on team play, I would give it more to Rascal Jester.
I tell you what, as we get into game, Rascal Jester's on the blue side, Sengoku on the red. Both teams looking to pick up their first win. Yeah, it's attack speed, lethal tempo on the Varus, so not opting towards that lethality build, at least you'd have to feel. We'll be picking up items like this Immortal Shield Bow, could potentially go into the Wit's End and be a bit more of a DPS threat for his team.
Well, I'm wondering, because there's a couple of options you now have on the table here as the Varus. So the first option is the crit build, right, where you go something along the lines of, you can either go Shield Bow or you can go Kraken and then build into something like Phantom Dancer / Hurricane, Infinity Edge, etc., etc. Or you can go for a Wit's End build, where you go something like the Shield Bow, Wit's End, go like Ginsu's maybe, and go full on hit Varus. Or you can go somewhere in between with a mixture. I'm expecting to see a mixture of the two, where we see the Wit's End, but it's still a pseudo crit build. But I think it would make a lot of sense to go for the more on-hit variation. But either way, it does give your composition a little bit more individual champion scaling by going that attack speed route instead of the lethality.
Yeah, and we've talked about Cosmic as maybe being one of the weaker mid laners throughout this tournament. On the DF here, very enabling pick for his team. Akainu on something a little bit more damage focused. Do you think that this really suits these two players and what styles they want to be playing in and of themselves?
I'd say so. I say, in all honesty, Cosmic has looked like he's been struggling a little bit in terms of the mid lane matchups, and playing the more utility style for the rest of the team makes a lot of sense. Akainu, I actually do think is a very good aggressive player when given these more damage-based, assassin-based mid laners, so I think it makes a lot of sense to give him the Akali. It is going to be tough in this matchup, but I wanted to mention this earlier. Kurupt pathed around his Raptors to avoid a ward, so there's no way that you knows that he's here on the top side right now.
Yeah, as we do see the Rascal Jester's jungler looking to get something done, audaciously charges on top of the set, lands the haymaker damage and takes a tower shot for his troubles, but you're burning a flash, you're going to be saying that's worth, and you're landing a hook on the bot lane now if you're Chilio, gets the route down onto Shakespeare, who is forced to flash back as Siratama continues to step up and trade with that lethal tempo. Now, Aatrox is a champion that we haven't really seen in the meta as of recent. Do you think there's a particular reason that Rascal Jesters chose to pick it out here?
Yeah, so the likelihood is you're just wanting to create distance from the enemy team, and he can be a massive pain in terms of an individual standpoint. Combine that with the necessity of now bioing healing reduction, it's going to be very tough now for the side of for Sengoku to really deal with this pick. There's not a whole lot of lockdown picked up. I do want to quickly mention, though, the early pathing from Kurupt means that he did skip his blue and his Gromp in order to go towards the top side, as well as these Raptors. So because that play didn't work out and get a kill, it means Akai is now able to create a situation where you can take the enemy Raptors, which means that the second clear now for Kurupt is going to be significantly worse. So Aki, is now going to have a massive advantage in terms of clear speed for the next couple of moments. So there's going to be a massive jungle CS gap building up. So now Rascal Jester is forced to make a proactive play, which is why they've moved Cosmic towards the top side to try and dive Yu, who is flashless.
Yeah, Aki will spot them out though. Has got a 3-camp lead currently on the Olaf. Will be taken down to 2 as Kurupt picks up that Krugs just by Yu in the top lane. Maybe looking for a dive here as the set doesn't have TP available, so would be forced to walk back to wave. But with those 2 tower shots landing onto Rando, I think the player's been dissuaded.
Yeah, and it's really smart from the side of Aki as well. I think those Raptors are actually just a 1 Raptor on its own that isn't letting the camp reset.
That's rude.
Yeah, so it means now that the Rascal Jester's jungler is now going to be in a really awkward situation, because remember the clear idea that came through. The walls were cleared, but the Gromp was cleared about a minute afterwards. So this second clear is now completely horrible for the side of Kurupt. He's going to be able to get wolves, 1 Raptor, a little Raptor, and the Krugs, whereas the side of Aki, he gets everything except his own Krugs up. And the Gromp is going to spawn on a terrible timer. The Raptors is now going to have a horrible timer as well. So he's going to be massively ahead, which means that this Olaf can start to snowball out of control, which is exactly what Sengoku needs.
Absolutely. Coming out from that jungle pick, the closer this Olaf gets to level 6, once he hits that mark, going to have a lot more value in the fights up against Kurupt, up against Cosmic, because obviously can get that CC immunity. We do see the Xin Zhao making his way onto the red side Raptors, and this will not be spotted out. So good reactive play to try and get something back, but still in a little bit of a hole.
Yeah, Kurupt knew that there was no way to actually fix his own clearing side, so took an aggressive play there to try and steal away those Raptors to essentially try and save his jungle situation. It did end up working out, so it means that now the Rascal Jesters are in a much better spot in terms of the jungle department, and it gives them the ability to be on the top side with this Twisted Fate ultimate to dive Yu.
Oh, no ultimate for you. TP is going to come out from Akainu, but I don't know if it's going to get there in time. The Haymaker shield is big as the Akali dives on top of Cosmic and will pick up a trade kill, but Rascal Jesters get the first blood in the aggressive play.
Yeah, and key factor is they've now got no teleports on the side of Sengoku. It's First Blood over to the side of Rascal Jester, so they now have a tempo advantage for the next couple of minutes because they'll be able to blow through tempo using the teleports. And crucially, you can't make a trade play now for the side of Sengoku in terms of diving the enemy bot lane because one, it's a Braum, so it's very hard to dive anyway, and there's double TP now for the side of Rascal Jester, and just look at the play. They set it up fantastically in the last few minutes, and the execution is everything they need. I love Cosmic tanking it up, but Akainu's teleport does come through, and it means that you're going to end up trading, but the amount of advantage they gain off of this play that isn't immediately obvious is going to have massive implications for the next couple of minutes.
I mean, this CS lead for Rando is looking pretty obvious in my opinion. 35 CS up and a kill onto you. I imagine a lot of that gold lead is in this Aatrox as Cosmic is caught out. There goes the Berserker Rage from IQ as one more undertow will finish off Cosmic, who dies for the second time this game.
Yeah, IQ doesn't miss a single one there in terms of those Qs. There wasn't any way out for the Twisted Fate. And the Ghost is popped from Cosmic, but it doesn't mean anything if you're going to get slowed every couple of seconds. So nice work there from the SG jungler. Going to now transition that towards this Herald. And this is one of the issues with Twisted Fate in general into this Olaf is you usually rely heavily on your CC to keep yourself safe as well as make plays. And Olaf doesn't really care about that. Combine that with the fact that Twisted Fate wants to go to other lanes, and this Herald in the mid lane being dropped could be very dangerous later on down the line.
Yeah, Rascal Jesters, they do know that this one's going on, but choose not to contest it as Kurup is going for this blue buff still on the other side. Akainu is in the area though, as is Chilio. Nina will be rotating over. Could have a fight here. Hook connects onto the Twisted Fate, but Chilio chooses not to follow up, and Sengoku will just concede this blue buff.
Yeah, Sengoku were thinking about it, but Rando had moved down a little bit out of vision from the other members of SG. With that teleport available, you have to consider that's going to be a 4 versus 3 play on the map, maybe even 5 versus 3 actually. So you can't make that play from the side of SG, and that's why they have to bail out of that hook. But at the same time, it means that Akai was able to finish off that Rift Herald, get that one for themselves, and it means that they can potentially look to make another play onto that Twisted Fate in the next minute or so, use that tempo to get themselves mid-tower, and from there, Sengoku becomes in a very strong spot despite how that early game did end up going.
Nina's trading aggressively, but obviously Rascal Jester still have an advantage in that top side with the Aatrox. So how, if we know that Sengoku will be looking to place this Herald down mid lane to get Aki and Akainu snowballing a little more, what do Rascal Jester need to do with Rando so that they can really start to push this top lane advantage?
The first thing that needs to happen is not actually to do with Rando. The first thing that needs to happen is Kurup needs to go towards the mid lane, most likely to deal with Akainu, because there is a decent CS and XP lead being built up there for the Akali. If you shut her down to begin with, it then gives Twisted Fate the ability to move much more flexibly. From there, you can then transition towards the top lane, but another option is to do it now.
Oh, the World Ender comes out. There goes the showstopper onto Rando, who heals up with the Darkin Blade and picks up their second kill of the game onto you.
What I was going to say is there is one moment where you don't have to do that, and that's when Akainu recalls. And guess what? While I was saying that, Akali recalled, so you can go straight top lane with the Twisted Fate ultimate, punish you again, and this is the power of that global within Twisted Fate, and because your Akali is reset, it means that there's not going to necessarily be enough time to punish with the Herald, unless Sengoku rotates their bot lane, which is what they do. So Nina now going to get a little bit of Herald money for themselves, get a nice plate, but you don't get the full tower, and that is going to be crucial for the side of Rascal Jester.
Yeah, Sengoku spawned it quite early there, so whilst it is a lot of gold going over into that AD carry, not going to be too much more from that in terms of the structures. They will be able to pick up this Cloud Drake though, as Rascal Jesters aren't really in the area to contest. This would be quite an early second Drake actually, 11 minutes time on that Cloud. And with the Ocean and Infernal still as possibilities, it will be that Ocean Drake spawning. Does this favour either team?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to favor, in my opinion, the Sengoku a little bit better, just because of the nature of, yes, Olaf and Aatrox both have very good Ocean Dragon power because of their innate healing, and Aatrox gets the healing emphasis with his ultimate, but for the side of Sengoku, the rest of their members are going to have a lot more value. You on the set going to be very dominant, whereas on the flip side, you know, Cosmic isn't going to get a whole lot of value from it, but Kurup is getting punished here a little bit by Akainu, who has to use the ultimate to keep himself safe. And the other members in general aren't going to get too much either, so To me, just the difference in mid lane is going to have a massive implications. I didn't think this would be a kill, but you get chunked quite badly there from Rando, and that can mean now Cosmic can look to push out his wave, push the next wave, and then you might just get dived again.
Yeah, that Destiny Gate is up very, very soon. Teleport in a couple of minutes as well. But Akainu trying to shut down Rando on the Aatrox, but with this lead, the Gore Drinker already completed and the World Ender, I think the Darkin Blade is in 2v1 territory if he wants to go for it.
It's very difficult to kill this Aatrox, as you say, with the Gore Drinker, with the ultimate increasing his healing, unless Akainu is willing to, had a little bit more itemization. Doesn't even have themselves that full item just yet. The Riftmaker not online, so you can't really do a whole lot. Yes, you have Ignite to cut the healing, but I don't think it matters if you don't do any damage. So I agree with you. I think it's very difficult to kill Rando in that top side on any plays. And at the same time, though, we need to give a little bit of credit here to the Rascal Jester's draft, because we mentioned how bot lane is neutralizing, right? Oh no.
Oh no, you stepped up to clear the wave. Here comes the Destiny Gate, but it's a blue card locked in by Cosmic as he is forced to flash back and is now on the wrong side of the play. Rando can't do anything to help out his mid laner, locks in that gold card, fakes out the auto attack, and means that you will just back away. A little bit of fumble there from Rascal Jesters, and with 3 members of Sengoku in the bot side of the map, they could be looking to pick up first tower here.
Yeah, they'll be able to get quite a bit of tower damage, that's for sure, but Shakespeare is coming in, as is Sirotama, so I doubt they'll be able to get the whole thing. Do get themselves 2 or 3 plates, though. But at the same time, I think it needs to be noted now, Akainu doesn't have teleport to counter that play again. And the whole play for Cosmic is just, I'm going to ult top lane because we drafted a defensive bot lane, and guess what that means? You can't do anything bot side, so we can do everything we want top side, and that's what Rascal Jester is playing to do, and Kurup is here to try again.
Yu is having fun playing League of Legends. Very big showstopper into the Haymaker, but crucially dodged away from by Rando. The set will fall as Aki is here as well. The Darkin Blade landing though onto Aki as he is forced to Ragnarok away, but rolling on forward, here comes Akainu, picks up a double kill.
Big for Akainu. This is the member you wanted to see get fed if you are on the side of Sengoku, because if you can get this Akali ahead, if you can get them to avoid that Twisted Fate gold card, they can do so much damage and shut down Surutama. If there's anyone to watch out for, it's going to be Akainu to deal with that one, so massive implications for the later stages of this match. On top of that, if this Akali can start to get fed, maybe she can start to threaten Cosmic and not allow the TF to just push the lane constantly, which is what they're doing to find so much success on the side of Rascal Jester, but we'll see this play again. It's a nice initial attempt from Rascal Jester, but Yu keeps himself that Haymaker shield. Nice use of the showstopper to buy time, but that Haymaker is more than enough to stall out, and I think Yu didn't quite have to die, did Greed to get a little bit of extra damage, but Akai doesn't quite go down thanks to Olaf's Ragnarok to stall the distance, denying the CC, and Akainu just comes in. It's clean up crew Akali, baby, and she picks up 2 free kills.
Yeah, that's a little bit unacceptable that Akainu was able to get the first rotate off the play that Rascal Jesters initiated, but I feel like at this point, going top lane has just become so telegraphed that Sengoku must be starting to anticipate that that's what's going to happen at every couple of minutes. It has resulted in Rando getting a pretty disgusting lead on the Aatrox, 2.4k up on his top lane counterpart. But Sengoku, overall, they're only down 800 gold. They are far from out of this.
Yeah, absolutely, and the key factor is the amount of their gold is on Akainu, on the Akali, and on Nina, who both are in decent states to carry. Nina going towards that shield both for the defensive nature, and it does make it a little bit harder to obviously kill this Aphelios when he is running the cleanse as well for the gold cards, and has plenty of defensive stats to deal with the Xin Zhao jumping on him. So I feel as though, as this game starts to go later and later, Nina is going to become more and more of a factor. But at the same time, Akainu is having a solid game of their own, so we'll have to see how much this Akali can gain in terms of value, specifically because of the fact that this dragon is spawning, and it would be sole point here for the side of Sengoku.
Yeah, Rascal Jesters, you'd have to think, want to contest this one, but they haven't really got the same level of vision in the river.
Ooh,
There comes out
interesting.
the Destiny. Rando's on the backside. Gate hasn't been used as of yet. Kurup is in the pit. Teleport's being channeled. Here comes the TF. And there goes the Akali, diving on forward, but gets CC'd immediately. Able to get away with a perfect execution as the showstopper on Dorado pulls him back into the fight. Cosmic gets flayed up, but the Aatrox gets the resets. Akai is trying to stay alive, but will not be able to do it. It's another kill going over to Rascal Jester as Nina extracts himself from the fight from Chili Oil's Dark Passage and starts to turn around, dealing the damage with the Chakrams, with the red gun, though he may have overstepped though. Golden Shakespeare buying a little bit more time for herself as the piercing arrow lands on the bat line, but Nina just doesn't stop. He's walking forward menacingly at Rando. One more hit would take down the Aatrox, but it's not quite going to come out. Rascal Jesters, they get the Drake, but they lose the fight.
Yeah, this is an aggressive teleport. It's going to be fine for Cosmic. The problem there for Rascal Jesters is after the fight is essentially quote-unquote done, 2 of them are hitting Dragon and 2 of them are chasing. So Sengoku goes, oh, it was 4v3, but now it's a 3v2 in our favor. We're just going to fight you and we're going to get the rest of the play. So, you know, they get themselves an extra kill off the back of it, and now they have a little bit of time to free hit the tower because of the way that fight ended. I think Rascal Jester over chasing like that was kind of their own mistake, but this is why TF is considered to be a counter to Akali. It's really quite easy. Akainu jumps in and immediately is just done. Just gold card gone, Brom Q gets deleted. Akainu can do nothing in this fight, and at this point, even though Varus isn't even here yet, the members of Rascal Jester are doing so much work, because look at Rando. He's just stalling for time. Varus finally shows up, and at this point, it's just cleanup crew. Everything's been blown from the side of SG, but look, 2 chase, 2 turn. And this is the problem. It means that now, suddenly, Nina is just able to free hit in a situation where, if all members went to the Dragon, this couldn't happen, and you don't have enough left. So Shakespeare, forced to go golden, forced to blow their own life just to try and keep this one alive and on the play. And yes, you get the Dragon, but realistically speaking, that wasn't a necessary sacrifice.
Yeah, it's sort of a weird situation considering that you killed the Olaf very early. It's not like Sengoku had a smite to actually contest that trade, but regardless, does go over to Rascal Jester as they summon Shirley in the mid lane, looking to take down this tower in trade for the one that Sengoku grabbed a couple of seconds ago. Maintaining their gold lead, but haven't extended it by too much in the past few minutes.
Yeah, but using Shelton Benjamin there does mean they're able to get themselves a bit of macro power now, because they do break down that mid tower, sorry my words, and it means that they can now set up their vision much more effectively. And when the game becomes like this, where the map starts to open up a little bit more, I feel like TF gains even more value, because suddenly you can't play side lanes very effectively, because every single situation is going to be numbers advantage for Rascal Jester in terms of who can rotate. You have to always consider, unless you're targeting the global of the Twisted Fate, he can appear very quickly, significantly faster than the Akali, unless teleport is available for Akainu.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important to use Sheldon Cooper in the mid lane to take down that tower. That means you can push the wave a little bit further, and then Cosmic can just turn up in one of these side lanes, save Bazinga, and stun you with a gold card.
Yeah, Shirley Bassey is really powerful to utilize and gain that macro advantage. So that's why we love seeing the Rift Herald used in that kind of manner, right? It's why we always tend to see it used in the mid lane, not just for gold, but it's for that macro advantage you can gain. But in the meantime, it feels as though for the side of Rascal Jester, they're not doing a whole lot, but they don't need to. They're just waiting for that dragon to spawn, and they're happy to just take these team fights while their champions are quite strong on their items.
Yeah, and that's what I really like about Sherlock Holmes, is it gives these compositions that maybe have a couple of weaknesses early on, an ability to actually take towers and push that macro advantage. Like you mentioned, we're going to have the Ocean Drake spawning in a minute's 30 time. Obviously, Sengoku still have the potential to grab a soul point, but Rascal Jesters have shown a lot of willingness to fight over that objective.
Yeah, that's what I like about Shrek. No, we're stopping there. We're stopping there. Yeah, in terms of the objective setup, it's all Rascal Jester now. That is a warded Baron. There's a pink right there. So this is well known, which to me kind of indicates Rascal Jester. They're not actually doing the Baron to take it. They're doing it to try and turn. So they're wanting to set up here, maybe use that Chains of Corruption as an engage tool. But Yu is coming from the top side, and I don't think they have a great way of dealing with this set if he does enter.
Yeah, you looking for a flank here. Hook landing onto Rando in the back line, but will not be taken by Chile. Oh, there goes Akainu diving onto the front side, instantly into the stasis U with a massive haymaker, but Rando is dealing the damage as well. Akainu on low HP does eventually drop. It's all Ogre now for Rascal Jester as Sengoku take the fight. Rando not willing to call it quits, though, deals a little bit of damage onto Chile with the Darkin Blade, but ultimately Sengoku take the fight.
Yeah, it's just a weird decision there from the side of Rascal Jester. I feel as though forcing in that specific situation isn't necessary. You won't have to watch out for your flanks. It's the only way that Sengoku is able to fight a good fight. And guess what? Akainu and you both end up in the backline, and that's a problem for the side of Rascal Jester. They want it front to back, where TF gets an easy gold card onto the Akali, but he blows the gold card to try and deal with the set who had the flank, and it means Akainu can do whatever they want to, and the perfect execution can run straight through the enemy, and it means that now multiple members fall, so Sengoku get themselves that dragon and put themselves on soul point.
Yeah, Cosmic did have the TP, could have gone for that one if he wanted to, but ultimately wasn't in range, and this is how the team fight worked out. So I think that Akali may have actually got a Shuriken flip onto the Aatrox.
Yeah,
there we are.
It's beautiful.
Whee!
I love that from Akainu to join the fight, keeps yourself in the TP. And look at you, though. The fact that so much time is bought as well as crowd control, it means that Akainu can enter the backline, and they're just being an absolute nuisance. The Akali rips through, and from here it feels as though, in the meantime, Aphelios was building up the chakrams, and Nina, if you see at the end, has so much damage available to them that it feels like with a fight that opens up like that, Sengoku can do absolutely anything they want to.
And it's a little bit weird. Rando got such a big early advantage, and whilst he's definitely popped off in the past couple of fights, feels like he can't really stand up against this Akali, against this Aphelios. So whilst you may be in the dirt a little bit, I think he's happy with how the rest of his team are doing.
Yeah, the issue is the fights that they're taking for Rascal Jester aren't the types of fights they want. They need front to back. Chili Oil is looking, but you're not fast enough, my friend, to chase down Saritama just yet. And in reality, unless they can find those front-to-back fights, well, you have a slippery Akali and a slippery set. They want to be in the backline causing a nuisance. So Rascal Jester, they need to ward up their flanks and make sure that they're not able to get caught out by you like that and get caught out by Akainu like that. And because if they're forced to deal with the flank issue, it means no one's hitting Nina. Nina can just build up those chakrams and do plenty of damage, and that's what happened in that last fight.
Yeah, so would you say that we've actually got to a point in the game where Sengoku's composition is favored over Rascal Jester?
It's not a case of the composition is favored. It's a case of the composition that wins is dependent on the way in which the fight is set up and executed on, right? In specific situations, I will get back to that point because it feels as though Rando and Akainu trading here bot side.
Yeah, genuinely want this though. Pops the world ender on Rando. Here comes the Destiny. Will the TF gate in? Yes, he will. But Cosmic not really in range of Akainu, who is able to Shuriken flip themselves out. Meanwhile, Sengoku just starting up the Baron will reset now. But with two members of Rascal Jester's pulled to the bot side of the map, should still be an advantage for Sengoku around this top river.
Yeah, and it's going to be a 4v5 at best because Cosmic is walking, but there's no teleport on Rando. And with that TP in here from the Akali, Baron at 5,000, I feel like Sengoku are in a decent spot to get this one.
Yeah, Kurt trying to 1v1 Akainu on the backside, but it doesn't really look likely. Means that the Baron goes over to Sengoku. Now, Rascal Jester's in the area. Ragnarok popped, absorbs the Chains of Corruption as well as the Moonlight Vigil just drops a bit of damage. And you're feeling pretty good if you're a fan of the Samurai purple buff going over to the red team.
Yeah, unfortunately therefore Rascal Jester, all members blowing their CC on the Olaf when he's in Ragnarok is going to be a little bit suboptimal, shall we say. But it means that Sengoku, they were able to pick up the Baron and they got out with all of their members. It's a beautiful play from them. They sneak it, they understand there's no way for Rando to join off of the play. And it's worth noting that only really works out because Akainu was able to evade that play in the bot side using that perfect execution so well. Because if they couldn't avoid that, that becomes a 4v4 play because of Twisted Fate teleport. So it's a great play from Akainu individually, but Sengoku in a perfect position to punish.
And now look at Nina. 3 items completed on the Aphelios as well as the stopwatch. A couple of items on Akainu. All importantly, got that Zonya, so can bait out these cooldowns a little bit more. And it doesn't feel like there's a lot of damage on the side of Rascal Jester just yet. The rapid fire cannon onto Cosmic, obviously not going to be getting you a massive amount of damage. And then with this Immortal Shield Bow Wits End build from Siratama, whilst can definitely start doing DPS, not optimal from the damage front.
Yeah, it's not going to be exactly perfect. I mean, when you look at Rascal Jester, that is kind of the issue. That's why the Aatrox needs to make up for the damage that Twisted Fate is lacking in. But it does mean that you have a very physical-based sort of composition, and that's why Suratama is also optimizing towards that more on-hit based Varus build, going now into the Ginsus as his next item of choice. And once Rascal Jester does hit that 3 items in their AD carry, they can start to fight convincingly. But right now, Sengoku looking very strong. This is an interesting situation. I feel like this is what we call optimal macro.
Yep.
From the position of both teams actually, and that is that those are no longer champions.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, that looked like what happens when you're playing with your solo queue team, and that's like their thought process,
Just vibrating strangely in mid lane.
Yeah, they're vibing. That seems like most of my solo queue teammates, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because what really matters is the way the game's going, right? And credit where credit's due. Sengoku is doing a great job. They're finding the fights that I personally thought were going to be quite difficult to find, because I thought, the Akali, she's going to jump in and then just TF pops ult afterwards. But not Rando, Cosmic is just popping the ult early, which means that Akainu can just jump in freely because there isn't that vision. So I feel as though it's great from Akainu to punish that, but Cosmic needs to stop using the ult for movement and you save it for vision to punish this Akali more effectively.
And it didn't feel like Rascal Jesters did much with the early advantage that they got. Rando had a massive lead in the top lane, but kind of just stayed there. Like, you can dive the set as much as you want, but ultimately, when it comes to the team fight stage, he's still going to be doing the same thing. And you're bleeding objectives around the map. Obviously, you got yourself a couple of... I can't think of any more famous people that names start with the sh sound.
I had fun with that. Can we just get that going in chat just to see how many people we can get?
I can't think of like many more. So what, we had Shirley Bassey, Sherlock Holmes, Sheldon Cooper. Who did you?
Shaquille O'Neal.
Shaquille O'Neal. Oh, we didn't say Shaquille O'Eal. Actually.
We didn't say Shaquille O'Neal. I was going to go with
Shrek. Yeah.
I was going to go with Shirogane from whoops, I can't remember the anime name now right now. And it's annoying
okay.
But that's fine. I don't know. Shirotama.
Shirotama? That rings a bell. No, yeah, hold on. That's not how you say his name.
No, I know, but I thought I'd go with it anyway.
That's not how you say his name. But yeah,
I was trying.
It didn't feel like they really the Rando was moving around the map, actually using that advantage to benefit the rest of his team. Obviously now Sengoku are on soul points, I believe, in terms of Drakes, as we are still waiting to get back into game. Don't know what's going on there.
Just sort of Riot Games is a small indie company. It is what it is. It's okay.
We appreciate a lot for letting us use their stream to do this broadcast.
Thank you. I didn't know that was how I am very appreciative. Please don't fire me. But what I can say is in reality, I do agree with you. I think that the whole point of this Twisted Fate roaming towards the top side is you need to get Rando ahead, and then Rando uses that lead, whether that be in a split pushing mana or taking over team fights. Otherwise, you're not really getting as much value from the pick as it can otherwise. In reality, it felt like whilst the play works, you went for the play about 6 times in a row, and when you do something 6 times, if it's not getting punished, then you have to feel like the other team probably wants you to win. And it felt like, Sengoku, they started to realize the play that was happening was just, our top laner is down 40 CS, maybe we should try and help him a little bit, or get something elsewhere. And they did both those things, and Akainu started to get fed off of the counterplays.
Yeah, and I think Nina getting fed as well is incredibly important. I think if it's just the Akali going into the top lane picking up kills, it's maybe not as beneficial. But the amount of hypercarry potential that the Aphelios does have gives you that sort of secondary carry that you'll need if the Akali is getting popped in team fights, like we did see a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, let's be fair to Niner on this AD carry has been instrumental in the way these games have been playing out later on down the line, because the Aphelios is doing so much damage, and when we saw the gold graphs last, had easily the most gold by far. It is absolutely carrying this one in terms of the damage aspects, and it's what we mentioned in terms of the scaling for this red side composition is primarily within this Aphelios pick, and if you can make it work, it can do substantial damage.
Yeah, and then the thing is, on the other side, you don't really have as reliable a way of getting on top of him as you potentially would like. Aatrox and Jinxiao, they can sort of just like walk through you, but if you're not allowing them to do that, all of a sudden accessing targets becomes very difficult, especially against the Aphelios who, with that Gravitum gun and with the Severum as well, can kite out these bruises as they're trying to dive on top of him and start to turn around those scenarios.
Yeah, to me, the way that these fights, if you are a Rascal Jester, right? So if you're a Sengoku fan, everything's going fine. Keep it as it's going. Keep diving the backline. Be disruptive. Be a pain. If you're a Rascal Jesters fan, there is one thing that needs to change, and it's very simple. Rando needs to leave the rest of his team. Keep your four together, and Rando just dive the Aphelios. If
Yeah.
you're gonna die, fine, don't care. Buy a stopwatch. You need to buy distance and buy time, because if you can keep this Aphelios away from your other members, suddenly I think the entirety of Sengoku falls apart. I think it's very difficult for the other. Yeah. So, and here's why, right? If we look at the other members of the Sengoku composition, how do they kill the Varus? The logic is this, right? Is
Yeah.
that you need to dive onto the backline carry, right? So Akali shouldn't be able to do it because Twisted Fate is waiting with the gold card. And the idea is, as soon as Akali presses R1, you instantly pop your ultimate because she has to shroud. If she doesn't shroud, she gets Brom stunned, auto down dies. So she has to shroud, but then you ultimate so that then you have vision. So she can't actually use the shroud, in which case the same thing plays out where you gold card her, she gets auto down, she dies. If Set goes in, he just gets either knocked up by Xin Zhao or hits with Brom auto or Brom passive in some way. He dies, or at least distance gets stalled. Olaf jumps in, same thing happens. He gets focused by Varus and dies. But that's even with those scenarios running out, you haven't even considered Chains of Corruption as an ability option.
Yeah.
And it's a 4v3 situation to begin with. Because realistically, Varus isn't going to solo kill Aatrox. He needs Thresh to save his ass. Oh, sorry, save him. Apologies. So realistically, it's a 4v3 play versus a composition that arguably can do very well in a death ball scenario. So to me, I think if you're using the Aatrox to buy space so that Aphelios can't hit, it becomes hard to kill Varus at the same time, whilst also denying Aphelios. And to me, I think it takes too long to kill Aatrox and join the rest of the fight to actually have an impact in the rest of the play.
Well, I suppose that was like one of the benefits of actually shutting down the set in the early game. Whilst he's gonna face breaker, he's gonna he's gonna smash your heads in with the showstopper as well. He doesn't last as long as he necessarily would after that. Obviously, he gets the grit shield, and that looks very big and scary. But in reality, that drops down pretty quickly. If you are focusing him, so I get that, yeah. But the difficult thing for me is going to be that Sengoku are on an Ocean Soul point.
Yeah.
So it feels like there isn't really the need for them to allow that situation to occur. Aatrox isn't really the best split pusher. Obviously, can clear ways relatively quickly, but doesn't have massive attack speed, steroids, or anything like that. So if you're Sengoku, you can just move towards this Drake, force a fight around there as a group of 5. If you win the fight, great, you can take Baron and push down a couple of towers and end the game. Even if you don't get the Drake or it gets stolen away. So I think, theoretically, whilst that's what Rascal Jesters need to do, I think in terms of the game state, it's a little bit harder for them to actually execute on that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the only way in which Rando can make that sort of situation actually end up happening is if you can set up the vision first and try a flank. That's the best bet at doing that, because at that point, if you think about the way the Infernum is going to work, if you've got the main body here, you can't see my camera, the main body here and Rando just off over here, you're not going to get that damage spread. It's not going to hit on both sides. It's only going to focus on one, or it's going to focus on the other. I forget about the actual camera swings about that.
It's all like you're trying to like do pieces of. I don't understand how it works either.
My hand is like barely. It's not even as far as my monitor. I'm sorry, but what I can say is if you can find those flanks, then you can maybe do something. But in reality, it's very difficult now at this point for Rascal Jester to do a whole lot in that regard. It feels like they didn't snowball correctly in the first couple fights. They played one well, because if we remember the one fight they won, Akali got blown up instantly, and it felt like Nina couldn't hit multiple people. That was the fight they won, and that's exactly what you want if you're a Rascal Jester fan. And then the other fight, Nina hit everyone, and Akali didn't die. So it's a case of, can you create that situation again? But right now, you're in a situation where you're playing against Olaf, and he's absolutely going to be happy to flip every single dragon. And there's now a Baron buff on the enemy team, right? So
yeah. It's a rough state. Apologies if you are just joining us or have been with us for a while. Currently in a game pause between Sengoku and Rascal Jester. Don't know the cause of the pause, but randomly, about 26 minutes into the game, everything started stuttering and champions were moving around. It looked a little bit sus. Hopefully that's going to be resolved as soon as possible. But it does mean that you get to spend more time with our lovely faces on the screen. Recollect, I want to sort of zoom out a little bit from this game because I feel like we've done it to death at this point and there won't be much left to talk about once we do finally get back into it. Looking over at the tournament as a whole, what are your general impressions about the level of a lot of these academy teams?
yeah, so I mean, I should probably start out with a explanation. I'm new to all this. This is my first time seeing a lot of these teams.
Yes, sorry.
So this I should say that first. This is an entirely fresh take. So I don't have any team history. This is my first.
No bias,
so
which is perfect.
There is limited bias, except for what I've heard from others and seen. So what I can say is, in general, I think that for the quote unquote pro level, the only team whose macro I look at and think, yep, that's ready to potentially fight some of the teams I would expect to see would be V3. I think,
yeah.
I think that's fair, right? Because when we look at the teams, who else has that level of macro?
Oh, we will have to find out as we are heading into game immediately. The team fight is breaking out. You diving onto the backline. Rando trying to fight him up as well. The set will be falling at the start of the fight, and no one else with Rascal Jester's hands before Akainu dives onto the backline, and Nina starts going absolutely nuts. The flash out from Rando as he can't win the 1v3. Sengoku really turn it on.
Yeah, the game's in a horrid state now for Rascal Jester as Sengoku secure themselves that Ocean Soul, and it's exactly what we were talking about before, right? If Rando can't find Akai and Nina, and be a pain, Nina can free hit and do whatever he wants to, and Akainu and you doing so much time to buy distance, doing so well for themselves and to buy space for this Aphelios to hit. Nina does absolutely tons of damage now, 6-0 on that Aphelios, takes the soul, takes a tower, and I feel as though now Sengoku definitely in the driving seat in this one.
Yeah, they were able to take down the set initially were Rascal Jester, but ultimately it was just that Aphelios damage. A little bit too much. We did see Rascal Jesters get the initial plate onto the Drake, but then the TP started to come through, and Sengoku got the flank off as well.
Yeah, they find the flank, and as I said before, you need to see Rando moving forwards here, but he's dunked back by you, and that means that now Nina has space. Akainu does a little bit of extra work here in a second, bang into the backline, and look, Nina still untouched. He only got hit by Brom once. Only Shakespeare was able to touch the Aphelios, and I'm gonna be honest, if only Brom is hitting you once, you're gonna be absolutely happy as an AD carry to take that one. And when you take the soul, with the amount of lifesteal on the side of Sengoku, the amount of damage and healing that they can realistically get from this soul, they're probably getting easily about 4,000 or 5,000 gold worth of stats just from that alone, so the gold lead explodes for them.
Yeah, healing will be absolutely massive. And then looking over onto the Rascal Jester side for grievous wounds options, not really there. Rando's picked up the Kempunk chainsword, but we saw in that fight was never able to really get on top of Nina. Didn't actually hit Akainu either, although the Akali did fall down in pretty short order. And then there isn't anything else for Rascal Jester, so it's really difficult for me to see, with Nina now picking up this Guardian Angel as well, how Rascal Jesters can actually deal with this Aphelios.
Yeah, it's a rough game state for the side of Rascal Jester. Their best bet now is to just try and find random picks and try and get back into the game that way, which Cosmic is trying to do, but you don't have friends, buddy.
Chilio's in the area. The death sentence connects onto Cosmic. The flay lands as well as the gold card goes back onto Thresh, but Ultimately, the RJ mid laner will not die for the 5th time this game, at least just yet.
Yeah, it's going from a very proactive, positive early game from Cosmic. It feels as though kind of starting to struggle now for this one, and as is the majority of Rascal Jester, right? It's a little bit of a difficult one for them, and you're looking at Rando to really try and carry these ones 4, 1, and 5 on the Aatrox. But when you flip the script and look at the members of Sengoku, he's got plenty of powerful members to deal with in Akainu and in Nina.
Yeah, Sengoku setting up vision around the top side of the map. Baron's going to be spawning soon. Rando trying to flex this advantage onto you as much as he can. Still a decent amount of damage. But if you're not even able to pressurize this set really in the side lane, it becomes difficult for me to see how you are going to impact Sengoku in a meaningful way. Baron is now on the table. There are no wards from Rascal Jesters anywhere near this as Sengoku will start it up.
Yeah, and it's honestly a hard one for Rascal Jester to deal with. They kind of have to try and slow it down, but Akainu is splitting, so they're in a situation where they either need to make their play happen immediately, or just do it not at all, but they're making the play happen, but the TP behind.
Oh, that's going to be the showstopper directly onto them, into the multi-man facebreaker. Perfect execution with the exhaust won't do too much, as Rando is trying to fight on the backside, will get slain by Akainu as the set falls in trade. Rascal Jesters get a 1-for-1, low health bars on Sengoku, but with all the lifesteal, all the healing, they'll be able to start up this Baron once again.
Yeah, and Rascal Jester, they do what I was talking about. They get Rando to buy space. With Ocean Soul, the variables get changed, and there's too much healing now for Sengoku to really execute. Nice hook from Chili Oil.
Yeah, lands immediately onto the Bronze. The cleanse away from Nina means the gold card does absolutely nothing. Sengoku going back onto this Baron, thinking about it with that piercing arrow lands. Maybe they are dissuaded, but no. Akaki is still doing this one. Will take the Dark Passage out as finally the Purple Worm is allowed some rest, and both teams back away.
I think Sengoku were thinking about stalling out there for you to get the teleport available after respawn, but they didn't quite have that one. And this is exactly, I believe this is exactly what I was talking about before, where, you know, the TP comes through from Akainu, yes, but the type of fight they get is one where Rando is buying time and the rest of the members are focusing the front line here from Sengoku, and it's exactly what RJ needs, because take a look at what Rando is doing in terms of work. I mean, yes, the members of Sengoku look like they're doing so well, it looks so good, but look who is following. No one at all. Rando buying so much space, and it means now that someone has to go down, and unfortunately, you is the sacrificial puppet there that doesn't end up falling.
Yeah, but crucially for Rascal Jester, Sengoku couldn't get that Baron, so don't have that big late game objective, at least yet, in their pockets. Pressing the 33-minute mark. Elder is going to be on the table very soon as well. And if neither team pulls the trigger towards one of these objectives, neither really establishes those vision lines properly, it's still anyone's game.
Yeah, the problem is, though, is that the soul is going to have even more value as the game goes on, because when you get more items, more damage, more health, it means that the lifesteal is going to have more and more value. So whilst Sengoku have an advantage now, they aren't the ones who necessarily need to force the issue. Rascal Jester are the ones who are in a difficult spot, but the CC is landing.
Well, very defensive teleport from you as Rando gets pulled into the middle of the team, is forced to flashback. There goes the Destiny Gate, gets the stun onto Akainu as the Akali is falling, but there goes Sirotama. It's a fight going in favor of Sengoku as they've already picked up two. Cosmic is forced to blast cone away, and that's going to be Elder going over to Sengoku.
Yeah, the key damage members are down for Rascal Jester. They can't defend, and crucially, whilst the fight does break out on different sides, they don't have defensive properties to keep Sirotama alive. Rando is not the one performing distraction duty, and as such, it means no one can really protect the way this Varus was. It wasn't split enough, so Thresh is able to move from one fight to the other, land a key... Sorry.
They can't... Right, that's Nina's fault, in my opinion, okay? If you're not clicking the lantern immediately, then it gets revoked. As Sengoku's starting up this Baron, obviously have the Elder buff in pocket as well. With both late game objectives and the Ocean Soul, feels like it should be their game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Sengoku, they have everything they could possibly need to try and end this one out in the next couple minutes, but by going from Elder to Baron, a lot of the Elder buff time is being wasted, especially when you then recall afterwards. So maybe only a minute left, but look at the way that this fight breaks out. It essentially becomes Kurup, Shiratama, and then later on Cosmic versus 2. And take a look at the way this fight breaks out. Chili Oil just flashes forwards, lands an easy hook onto Shiratama, who wasn't really watching the enemy behind him because he was focused so much on autoing the enemy in front, and as such gets picked off. And fights that are scrappy like that aren't the right types of fights for the side of Rascal Jester. However, they do only have a minute left to deal with this Elder buff, but they're still in a really tough spot.
Yeah, if they can take out a couple of these Baron-empowered minion waves, then they might stand a chance, but the inhib tower will fall. The inhib will go in short order, and it doesn't really feel like there's anything that you can do if you are a member of Rascal Jester's TP. Going to be channeled by Akainu as he's going into the base. They are looking for the end. Kurup diving onto the backside. There goes the set as well, as you get some massive damage with a Haymaker. Pops into the Zonyas as well, and this means that Nina can just start free hitting. 1 kill already for the Aphelios as the next is being focused, and Sengoku will grab their first win of the LJL Academy League.
Yeah, Sengoku picks up a well-deserved win there. The early game was rough for them, but the late game was significantly better. They come online, they get the Ocean Soul, Elder, Baron, everything they could possibly need, and they pick up a really crucial win here against Rascal Jester, meaning that there's a high likelihood they'll be able to avoid playing against arguably, one of the toughest teams here, V3, who are currently in first, or whoever it is that does end up first at the end of the next sort of day of this tournament.
Yeah, and I think it was a really confident win as well. Rascal Jester could have played better and definitely had angles where they could approach the game early on. I think Sengoku, it's a good way to get your first win, where you're taking dragons consistently, you get the Baron, you get the Elder, you get the Baron again, and you just walk forward with your composition and outdamage the enemy. Don't really give them a chance to get back into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once they had that lead, it felt as though Sengoku were never really going to lose it. Specifically, once they were in a situation where they got that third dragon, you felt as though they were in a decent position to potentially take it. And it meant to me that there was a very difficult state for the side of RJ to really do anything about, because as soon as you gave Drake 3, it felt like, okay, now we're in a situation where flipping is terrible for us, but we can't not flip. And then, the fight went bad, they lose soul, and from there, it's kind of like you need to find a ton of dream fights. And even then, they started to do the right thing. They had one fight where they found exactly what I was talking about during the break. Like, oh, we get one person, and look, we distracted Nina, we won! Except we didn't win because they have Ocean Soul now, and it means that we can't actually kill anyone because Ocean Soul is incredible when you get to the later stages.
I feel like that's starting to become the story of a couple of these teams in the LJL Academy, is that they give the enemy team Drake Soul and then they get a really nice fight, but it doesn't work out because they let the enemy team get the Drake Soul. We're going to be heading to a short break now before our final game of the day, which is going to be Burning Core Academy facing off against Axis Academy. We'll see you all in a few minutes.